Our next storyteller is a retired science teacher, a massage therapist. Let's have a warm welcome for Althea Smith.
Thanks, Dan. Well, I am a retired science teacher. I taught for 37.5 and of the 37.5 years, 30 years in Detroit. So I'm going to condense 30 years into 15 minutes. I started as a 4th grade science teacher, instilling the importance of learning and having fun with my 4th graders, with science projects, science fairs, guest speakers. I even created a make and take workshop for parents. And to highlight the end of the school year, we always had a fantastic science fair. It was one particular year I had the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools as one of the science judges. He was so intrigued to see that young minds can develop such creative types of science projects. So the first 2 years, I instilled the importance of learning, field trips, or it could have been just simply walking around the block, or even up and down the halls. My philosophy of teaching was to extend the learning beyond the four walls. 1976 was a time for change, rebuilding, repairing. It was a young teacher, domestic violence. She had a restraining order against her ex-husband, and she asked that we would not share any information about her, which we honored her request. Even the principal was aware of the situation. Unfortunately, one staff was not aware of the situation. She escorted the mister through the back entrance, up the stairs, down the hall, into her classroom. She was a 1st and 2nd grade self-contained teacher, and to respect the young mind that is here tonight, I won't go into the graphics, but he did take away the Mrs. life. So I stayed there for an additional 8 years to help to rebuild and to repair the character of this little elementary school. It was a hard job, but the staff and I, we were determined that we were going to bring back the students and the families, because many of the families decided to move away. One particular event, the make and take, has one youngster, the 4th grader. He brought in a large coffee can. And I just assumed, you know, you never should assume anything. I thought it was a little garter snake, you know, but over the period of time, rebuilding the character of the school, this particular snake decided to grow as well. Come to find out, he was not, according to the reptile curator at Detroit Zoo, he was a red rat snake, and he grew about maybe 4 feet long. So when I left teaching elementary, so did the snake. We donated it to the Detroit Zoo. So I decided to transition into middle school, and you be careful what you ask for, particularly with middle school students. This particular middle school was in the heart of downtown Detroit, across the bridge from the projects. These were very hardcore kids and very difficult to teach. But I was determined, with all the resources around this particular middle school, we had Wayne State University, the Science Center, Wayne State Medical Center, just so many resources. I knew these students, these 8th graders, were going to be successful. So I asked them, well, would you like to do a science fair project to enter into the science fair? So some said yes, and many said no, because their self-esteem was extremely low. This one particular youngster, 8th grader, he lived for basketball. He was a Michael Jordan clone. So I asked him, I said, meathead, would you like to do a science project? He says, no. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll play you one-on-one basketball. And when I get the first 15 points, you owe me a science project, and you're going to enter the science fair. So he kind of laughed at me. And understandably so, this kid was so great with basketball, you know, he was a ball handler. but I had a secret weapon. So I went to Spice Kid and I said, listen, now Spice Kid, he's also an 8th grader. And I said, listen, I'm gonna fake an injury, you know, and I want you to take over. Anyway, that Friday after school, I mean, the word got out, you know, Smith against Meathead, okay? The gym was full, you know, we even had cheerleaders, S-M-I-T-H Smith, okay? And so there's no Spice Kid. I said, oh, wow, I'm in serious trouble. Okay? Now, Spice Kid, 8th grade, he's always late to school, late to class. And so I said, okay, he's probably running a little bit late, you know. So Meathead's ready. He says, come on, Mrs. Smith, let's play ball. And I said, well, I'm still warming up. He said, well, you've been warming up for the past 15 minutes. And I said, okay, here comes Spice Kid, finally. All right, so the game is on. Meathead gets 5 points, 5-0. And I fake my injury. Oh. So Meathead said, oh, Ms. Smith, you know you're faking it. And, but Spice Kid takes over. So it's a very close game. So long story short, I had 8 students, including Spice Kid and Meathead, to do a science project. Now each of my 8 students had a mentor professor at Wayne State University. And their particular projects were high-level projects because I wanted their self-esteem to build up in addition to realizing they can do a great quality science project. So my 8 students entered the city fair, all blue ribbons. So now it's time for them to enter the regional fair. And Spice Kids project was determining which spices would inhibit bacteria growth on a certain meat, on a certain food. And Meathead's project was determining the fat content, percentage of fat content of various meats, okay? High-tech projects. Now, Spice Kid decided blue ribbon was sufficient enough. He didn't want to go to the regional. And so he stopped coming to school. He just disappeared. And I asked the students, where's Spice Kid? He says, well, Spice Kid decided that he was not coming to school. He didn't want to be part of the regional science fair. So I said, I'm going over to the projects to get Spice Kid. And so students said, Ms. Smith, teachers don't go into the projects. I said, I'm going. I remember I walked across the bridge, took the elevator up high-rise, and as I was traveling up there in the elevator, I realized when I was a young girl, I lived in the same projects. And if I could make it out, Spice Kid was going to make it out of the projects as well. So we talked, and Spice Kid decided that he was going to enter the regional fair. And now, Spice Kid's mentor was Dr. J, Julius Irving. And his mentor, professor at Wayne State University, was a professor of microbiology, Dr. J. So he had 2 Dr. J's. And Meathead's, of course, was Michael Jordan. So long story short, my 8 students entered the regional fair. Out of the 8, 7 were gold winners and 1 was a blue. Out of my 8 students, 1 is now a chemical engineer and 1 is an accountant. So I decided now I'm going to high school. Now in between middle school and high school, of course I did my community service. 1 was jury duty, and I did particularly want to do that, you know, form of my community service. It was a high-profile case, it was a homicide, and I was a juror. And the defendant had his boys in the courtroom staring at the jurors. So like, I'm invisible, you don't see me. And into the second week, some of the boys followed me during lunch recess, and they were saying, yeah, that's her. That's her. And my heart started beating really rapidly. And I turned around, and these boys looked at me to ask, aren't you Miss Smith? And I said, no. And they said, yes, you Miss Smith. And I said, no. And they said, yes, you Miss Smith. Remember us in the 4th grade? Remember those science projects we had to do? And I just smiled at them, and I kind of vaguely remembered them. And because I had a relationship with the defendant, I was dismissed from the case. And unfortunately, the defendant was found guilty and serving out a life sentence. Also, community service. you know, during this so-called PMS time, you know, I craved chocolate or cold cola, you know, in a bottle. And it's one particular convenience store in Detroit, always had the coldest bottle of cola. But you had to actually put your body into the cooler and all of the bags. Anyway, I'm in the cooler, you know, reaching for the coldest cola. And as I came out of the cooler, there were two guys looking at me. Hey, baby. I'm holding this bottle now, okay? Now it's no longer a bottle, it's a weapon of mass destruction. It's like, come on with it. Hey, baby. I'm like, yeah. Well, what's 7 times 7? I'm thinking, okay, now. Are they going to shoot me 49 times? Stab me 49 times? Or the unthinkable 49 times, you know? So they get, baby, well, 7 times 7. Now the teacher came out. Now you guys should know what's in it. How far did you make it in school? Baby, just know what's 7 times 7. Now listen. But eventually I said, it's 49. So they quickly left out the convenience store, you know. So, you know, drug dealers, you know, can't do simple math. That was the bottom line. So now I'm in high school, and one particular student, she had, called my little sparrow. She had a beautiful singing voice, and each day she would come into class and just sing, you know, just, it was just so crispy. She'd just sing, you know. But she had many challenges in her life. She had a boyfriend, and she rarely came to school. She would always run away from home because she wanted to be with her boyfriend. And it was one day I remember the students were quiet, and I said, why are you guys so quiet? So one youngster said, well, Mrs. Smith, won't you sit down? We have something to tell you. And what happened, little Sparrow and her boyfriend were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and both were, it was homicide. So my little Sparrow, perhaps right now is perched on a branch and still singing somewhere. So I continued into high school, and I got student teachers, okay, suburbanites, you know, make a difference, you know, but they were scared. They were like conjoined twins. And my students, you know, intimidated them by saying, boo, you know. So the students named them Ken and Barbie. Ken and Barbie, yes, what do you want, you know. So it was a field trip. And I told my student teachers, you need to brief them regarding the importance of correct behavior because we're going to a nuclear power plant facility. And I want my students, you know, to demonstrate good behavior. And so I was listening in on the briefing, and Ken says, well, you must show appropriate behavior. And the student said, oh yeah, right, okay. So what are you trying to tell us? Well, just demonstrate good behavior. You two demonstrate good behavior, okay? And so Ken and Barbie says, okay, fine. So the briefing was so fast. So we went to the nuclear power plant facility. It was a great field trip, and I complimented my students on the job well done. So now we're headed back. It was a couple hour, you know, drive from the nuclear power facility back to the school. And so I kind of dozed off a little bit. I was sitting in the front, and Ken and Barbie, you know, in the back with the students. Kind of dozed off a little bit. And so I woke up, I go, what do I smell? I said, I hope it's not what I think it is. So I slowly turned around, and they were just laughing. And Ken and Barbie just laughing. And so I slowly walked towards the back. Then I started feeling kind of happy. So I started laughing. I started having the munchies, you know. What do I smell here? And the students said, student said, well, Ms. Smith, can you identify what you're smelling? I said, well, it smells like marijuana. And they said, no, Ms. Smith, you know, we don't do stuff like that. So anyway, it was a very fun field trip. So continuing on in high school, it was very rewarding, and probably think I'm dancing right now. Actually, I'm not dancing. I developed an aviation program at my high school, and some of the students who participated in the program took their core classes in the morning, and in the afternoon they took their ground school and flight lessons. So this one youngster attained the age of 16. He's ready to solo, and he's on the runway. And I'm listening as he's talking to a Detroit Tower. Yo! I'm on the red. And I hear Detroit Tower says, well, Alpha Bravo 167, 21 right, you're clear for takeoff, 3 right touch and goes, and be careful with your first solo. Yo! And Detroit Tower says, and please polish up your terminology. Yo, okay. See, when he takes off, he's flying, and he's just doing fantastic. He comes around first time, perfect landing. Comes around second time, perfect landing. He has to do 3 touch and goes. Comes around the third time, touch, perfect landing. And so I hear Detroit Tower saying, congratulations, Alpha Bravo 167, successful solo. And please taxi and just hold short for a while. So as a teacher for 30 years, when I tell people I taught in Detroit for 30 years, their first reaction, whoa, you survived. No, it wasn't Detroit. I taught students with feelings and laughter and challenges and repairing the world, repairing a lot of students. I instilled the importance of education and challenging yourselves. Mrs. changed policies in Detroit regarding domestic violence. Detroit instituted a policy where doors are now locked. Spice Kid and Meathead unfortunately became victims of homicide. And may they rest in peace, and wherever they are, they're perhaps playing basketball against each other. My little sparrow perhaps is singing somewhere. Solo was asked to change his frequency to ground. Detroit ground, Alpha Bravo 167, you may now taxi to your future. Solo now is a commercial pilot. He flies big jets for the big executives. So I made an impact. There were many, and unfortunately, I was not able to save many, but the few that I did save, I'm grateful for it. So I taught for 37.5 years and 30 years in Detroit. And thank you.